I'm Mackenzie, 27, and 3 years of saving for my dream gaming PC vanished in a single day when my parents sold it behind my back. $3,800 of carefully selected components gone to fund my sister Amber's shopping spree. That betrayal was the final straw after years of being the afterthought child. What they didn't expect. My response would leave their perfectly constructed family dynamic in absolute chaos. Sometimes the quietest daughter creates the loudest aftermath. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had something precious taken from you without permission. Growing up in suburban Portland, the pattern was established early. Amber got the spotlight. I got the shadows. Being 8 years older than my sister meant I watched in real time as my parents' parenting philosophy shifted from rules matter with me to rules are flexible with her. When I was 10, leaving a light on overnight earned me a week without TV. When Amber was 10, leaving every light in the house on was met with, "She's expressing herself." I found refuge in technology from an early age. While Amber collected dolls and later designer clothes, I saved my allowance for computer magazines. By 13, I'd built my first basic PC from parts sourced at garage sales and refurbished shops. My parents viewed it as a quirky hobby, not understanding that I was developing skills that would eventually become my career. "Mackenzie, why don't you try dance like your sister?" Mom would suggest, watching Amber twirl around the living room. Colleges love well-rounded students. What she didn't realize was that I was already teaching myself Python and JavaScript, building foundations for my future while Amber was perfecting her pirouettes. High school amplified the divide. Amber's dance recitals and social activities dominated the family calendar. My coding competitions and tech club events were often overlooked or remembered at the last minute. "Sorry, honey, we forgot that was tonight," became a regular apology, usually delivered via text while they sat in an auditorium watching Amber perform. Despite this, I excelled academically and earned a partial scholarship to study computer science. College was my first taste of true independence, and I thrived. The dorm room became my sanctuary where my passion for both gaming and coding could flourish without judgment. My roommate Amanda became the first person who truly appreciated my technical skills, often asking me to explain what I was working on instead of dismissing it as playing on the computer. After graduation, I landed a job as a junior software developer at a tech startup in Portland. The salary was modest by industry standards, but it offered remote work flexibility and growth potential. Most importantly, it was mine, achievement based on merit rather than favoritism. Living costs in Portland had skyrocketed during my college years, so moving back home temporarily made financial sense. "Just until you save enough for a place," Dad had said. What was supposed to be 6 months stretched into nearly 3 years as I funneled most of my income into student loan payments and savings. Those 3 years at home reactivated old family dynamics. Amber, now attending community college sporadically between dance classes, remained the priority. My remote work was constantly interrupted with requests. "Can you keep it down? Amber needs to practice her routine," or "Would you mind using your laptop in your bedroom? Amber needs the dining table for her project." Meanwhile, I was meticulously saving for 2 things, my own apartment and my dream PC. As both a gamer and developer, I needed something powerful, not just for gaming but for running complex development environments and side projects. Every component was researched for weeks. The AMD Ryzen 9 5950X processor, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 graphics card, 64 GB of DDR4 RAM, 2 TB NVMe SSD, liquid cooling system, and a case with perfect airflow. Each part represented not just functionality, but a reward for my persistence. The day I finally ordered the last component felt like a personal holiday. I remember sitting in my bedroom, credit card in hand, heart racing as I completed the purchase. 3 years of overtime projects, freelance gigs on weekends, and saying no to vacations and new clothes had culminated in this moment. "What's got you so excited?" Mom asked, passing by my room. I just ordered the last part for my PC, I explained, showing her the confirmation email. That's nice, honey. Her attention immediately shifted. Did Amber tell you she got a callback for that dance company audition? When all the parts arrived, I spent an entire weekend assembling everything. The process was therapeutic, carefully connecting each component, managing the cable routing for optimal airflow, installing the operating system, and configuring the settings. The soft glow of the RGB lighting illuminated my otherwise plain bedroom, a beacon of accomplishment in a house where my achievements often went unnoticed. For 6 glorious weeks, that PC became my escape. I could work more efficiently during the day and explore vast gaming worlds at night. It symbolized everything I'd worked for, tangible proof that persistence pays off. The tensions at home continued to simmer beneath the surface. Amber's demands grew increasingly extravagant. Her 19th birthday approached, and subtle hints about designer handbags and weekend trips to Los Angeles peppered every conversation. College is stressful, she'd say dramatically at dinner. Jessica's parents are taking her to Cabo for her birthday. Dad would look concerned. Well, princess, things are a bit tight this month with the home repairs. I'd stay quiet during these exchanges, knowing from experience that pointing out financial realities or suggesting budget alternatives would cast me as the villain. Still, I felt secure in my progress. My PC was my sanctuary, and my savings were growing steadily toward independence. Little did I know that the delicate balance was about to shatter completely, leaving me with a choice that would permanently alter our family dynamic. The tech company I work for occasionally holds weekend retreats, intensive coding sessions mixed with team-building activities. That particular weekend in March was focused on launching a new feature, so I packed my laptop, not needing my desktop PC, and headed to the company's rented lakeside cabins. The weekend was productive. We coded, brainstormed, hiked, and I felt valued in a way I rarely experienced at home. As I drove back Sunday evening, I was mentally preparing for the week ahead, projects I'd work on, games I'd play to decompress. When I entered my bedroom, the feeling that something was wrong hit me immediately. The soft RGB glow that usually greeted me was absent. My desk looked barren, the dual monitors gone, the custom keyboard missing. Where my PC tower had stood, the culmination of 3 years of sacrifice, there was only dust. I stood frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. My first irrational thought was that we'd been robbed, but nothing else in the house seemed disturbed. With growing dread, I went downstairs to find my parents and Amber watching TV in the living room. "Where's my computer?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Dad muted the TV. "Oh, you're back. How was the work thing?" "Where is my computer?" I repeated, louder this time. Mom and Dad exchanged glances, the kind parents share when they've made a decision they know will be unpopular but believe is right. "Honey, we needed to make a difficult decision while you were away," Mom began in her therapist voice, the one she used when delivering what she considered reasonable but potentially upsetting news. "We sold it," Dad stated flatly. "Amber's 19th birthday is next week, and she's been working so hard at dance and school." Amber didn't even look up from her phone. "The boutique was having a one-day sale," she added, as if this justified everything. The room seemed to tilt. "You sold my computer? The one I spent 3 years saving for? The one that cost me nearly $4,000. "Well, we got $2,200 for it," Dad said, as if I should be impressed with their negotiating skills. "That nice young man from your mother's office has been looking for a gaming setup." It was perfect timing, really. Perfect timing? I echoed, my voice rising. "You sold MY property without MY permission at a $1,600 loss and call it perfect timing?" Mom's face hardened slightly. "Mackenzie, you're being dramatic. You have your laptop for work, and you can save up again. Amber only turns 19 once, and the opportunities she has with dance could lead to a real career. What did you even buy?" I asked Amber directly, fighting to keep my voice steady. She finally looked up, excited to share. The Valentino Rockstud heels I've been wanting forever, 3 dresses from Reformation, that limited edition Urban Decay palette, some tops from Free People, and tickets to see Taylor Swift with Jessica next month. She listed these items as casually as someone might mention picking up milk and bread. So my professional workstation and gaming PC is now shoes and concert tickets? I could feel my hands shaking. And we're taking her to that new fusion restaurant downtown for her birthday, Dad added. The one with the wait list. I turned to face them directly. That computer wasn't just for games. I use it for work, for freelance projects. It has files and programs I need. We had Jason from IT back up your important stuff, Mom said dismissively. It's all on that USB stick on your desk. And really, Mackenzie, you're 27. Isn't it time you outgrew video games anyway? That statement, reducing my passion and profession to a childish phase, cut deeper than the theft itself. You had no right, I said quietly. That was my property. I paid for every single component. Dad's patience was wearing thin. We're still your parents, and while you live under our roof, while paying $800 a month in rent to you, I interrupted. That barely covers utilities with how much time you spend on that computer, he shot back. Look, what's done is done. Amber deserves to celebrate her achievements, and as a family, we support each other. I would think at your age you'd be mature enough to understand that. Amber finally stood up. Why are you being so selfish? It's just a computer. You can build another one. She flipped her hair, a gesture she'd perfected for maximum dramatic effect. God, this is why Jessica says you're the weird sister. I looked at each of their faces. Dad's defensive irritation, Mom's righteous certainty, Amber's entitled indifference. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity how they viewed me. Not as a person with rights and boundaries, but as a resource to be tapped whenever Amber's desires exceeded their budget. I need some air, I said, turning toward the door. Dinner's in an hour, Mom called after me. I made your favorite pasta salad. As if pasta could replace what they'd taken. As if pasta could erase the violation. I walked for hours that night, processing what had happened. Every emotion cycled through me: rage, hurt, disbelief, and finally, a cold clarity. This wasn't an isolated incident, but the culmination of a lifetime pattern. If I stayed, nothing would change. They would continue to take and take, expecting me to be mature about it each time. By the time I returned home, the house was quiet. I slipped into my bedroom and sat in the darkness, staring at the empty space where my PC had been. In its place was a single USB drive with a sticky note in Mom's handwriting. Important files. Not all files. Not my game saves. Not my custom settings. Just what they deemed important. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. If they wanted to treat me like an ATM rather than a daughter, I would remove their access permanently. And I would do it in a way they'd never see coming. I've always been the strategic type. While Amber executed dramatic scenes for immediate effect, I preferred careful planning. That night, as I lay awake replaying their dismissive reactions, I began formulating my exit strategy. They expected me to sulk for a few days and then return to the status quo. They were wrong. The next morning, I appeared at breakfast seemingly resigned to the situation. I overreacted yesterday, I said, stirring my coffee. You're right that family supports each other. Mom looked relieved. I knew you'd understand once you had time to think. Dad nodded approvingly. That's my rational girl. Amber barely acknowledged the conversation, too busy posting Instagram stories about her new purchases. That same day, I called in sick to work and began apartment hunting. Portland's rental market was brutal, but I had an advantage. My job was fully remote, so I could expand my search to neighboring areas with lower costs. By midday, I had scheduled viewings for 3 apartments. The first was too small, the second too far from any amenities, but the third, a 1-bedroom in a converted industrial building in Vancouver, just across the river from Portland, felt promising. It was nothing fancy: exposed brick walls, modest kitchen, serviceable bathroom. But the building had secure entry, good internet infrastructure, and most importantly, it was available immediately. "I'll take it," I told the landlord, a retired teacher named Margaret who lived on the first floor. "Can I move in this week?" She seemed surprised by my eagerness, but agreed. I signed the lease that afternoon, using my lunch break to transfer the security deposit and first month's rent from my emergency apartment fund, a separate savings account my parents knew nothing about. Back at home, I began phase 2, financial separation. I created spreadsheets documenting every household expense I'd been covering. My rent payments, the family Netflix and Spotify accounts registered in my name, the smartphone family plan I managed, the high-speed internet I had upgraded for my work needs, but everyone enjoyed. I calculated exactly what percentage of household utilities my computer had consumed versus what I had been paying. Next came the physical preparation. Each day while my parents were at work and Amber was at dance classes or sleeping in, I made discreet trips to my new apartment with essential belongings. Clothes, books, my backup laptop, cherished possessions, all gradually migrated across the river. I was careful never to take too much at once, keeping my room looking lived in. I contacted my friend Rachel, the only person I trusted with my plan. "They did what?" she exclaimed over coffee at a cafe far from my neighborhood. "Sold my PC. For less than 60% of its value." For Amber's shopping spree, I confirmed. "That's theft, Mac. You could literally file a police report." I shook my head. "I don't want legal drama. I want clean separation." Rachel helped me transport larger items and offered emotional support when doubts crept in. "Are you sure this isn't too extreme?" I asked her one evening as we assembled my bed frame in the new apartment. "Mac, they stole thousands of dollars from you and acted like you were being childish for objecting. This isn't extreme, it's self-preservation." I spent evenings researching how to cancel shared accounts without immediately alerting my family. I changed passwords, prepared email templates, and set up automatic cancellation notices timed to deliver after my departure. The most challenging part was psychological, maintaining normalcy while preparing to permanently alter our family dynamic. I attended family dinners, listened to Amber's endless monologues about dance company drama, and nodded politely through Dad's lectures about career advancement. Mom occasionally asked if I was still upset about the computer thing, to which I would smile and assure her I was working through it. All the while, I was meticulously documenting everything I had contributed to the household over the 3 years I had lived there: rent payments totaling $28,800, utility contributions, groceries I had purchased, repairs I had managed, technical support I had provided. The final figure, over $40,000, was sobering evidence of how much they had taken me for granted. 1 week before my planned exit, I backed up all family photos from our shared computer onto an external drive, insurance against potential emotional blackmail about taking family memories. I also ensured my personal documents were secure and inaccessible from the family desktop. The night before my departure, I wrote a letter explaining my decision. It wasn't angry or accusatory; that would only validate their perception of me as immature. Instead, it was factual and direct. Dear Mom, Dad, and Amber, by the time you read this, I will have moved out. The sale of my computer without my consent demonstrated clearly where I stand in this family's hierarchy of consideration. While you have the right to make decisions about your household, I have the right to remove myself from situations where my boundaries are not respected. Attached is documentation of my financial contributions to this household over the past 3 years. I have paid for far more than just utilities for my computer use. I have canceled all accounts in my name that you have been using, effective tomorrow. This includes the family phone plan, Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime, and the premium internet package. I have also removed myself from all technical support obligations for household devices. I will contact you when I am ready. Please respect my space by not attempting to locate my residence. Mackenzie. I attached the financial spreadsheets and placed the sealed envelope on my desk. Then I packed my final bag, toiletries, and a change of clothes and went to bed in my childhood room for the last time, setting my alarm for early morning. That night, I listened to Amber coming home late, laughing loudly on the phone about her amazing new outfit. I heard Mom shushing her, reminding her that your sister is sleeping. The irony wasn't lost on me. They could be considerate when it suited them. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and peace. Tomorrow would change everything, but for the first time in years, I was prioritizing myself. Friday morning dawned clear and crisp. I woke at 5:30 a.m., well before anyone else in the house would stir. Amber had a dance showcase that evening, and my parents had taken the day off to help her prepare. Their entire day was meticulously planned around her performance, making it the perfect day for my exit. I showered and dressed quietly, then placed the letter prominently on the kitchen table where they couldn't miss it. For a moment, I stood in the silent kitchen, memories washing over me, homework at this table, Sunday breakfasts, holiday gatherings. Not all memories were bad, which made this harder. I took a final walk through the house, saying silent goodbyes to the space that had shaped me. In the living room, family photos lined the walls, Amber's dance recitals dominated, with my graduation photos relegated to the corner. The physical manifestation of our family's priorities couldn't have been clearer. My last stop was Amber's room. The door was ajar, and I could see shopping bags from her recent spree scattered across the floor. Designer shoes worth more than a month of my rent sat carelessly tossed aside. On her desk sat an expensive drawing tablet, a Christmas gift she had begged for and used exactly twice before declaring digital art too complicated. Next to it was a stack of textbooks from the classes she was currently failing. I didn't hate my sister. I pitied her. She had never learned the connection between effort and reward, between respect given and respect received. Someday reality would teach her what our parents never had. With one final glance around my empty bedroom, I picked up my last bag and walked out the front door. The soft click of the latch felt both anticlimactic and momentous, the period at the end of a long, complicated sentence. My modest Honda Civic was packed with the last of my belongings. As I drove away from the suburban neighborhood where I'd grown up, the knot in my stomach gradually loosened. By the time I crossed the bridge into Washington State, I felt lighter than I had in years. My new apartment building came into view, a renovated textile factory with large windows and brick facade. Nothing fancy, but entirely mine. Margaret was sweeping the entryway when I arrived. "Moving day?" she asked with a knowing smile. "The final trip," I confirmed, lifting my bag from the passenger seat. "Welcome home," then, she said, holding the door open for me. Home. The word resonated as I climbed the stairs to my third-floor apartment. The space was small, about 650 square feet, but the high ceilings and windows made it feel larger. My hastily assembled furniture looked sparse, but functional. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine, a space where no one could violate my boundaries or dismiss my feelings. I spent that day settling in, arranging my belongings, and making lists of essentials I still needed. Around 6 p.m., right when Amber's showcase would be starting, my phone erupted with notifications. The automatic cancellation emails had been delivered, and my family had discovered my absence. First came the texts. "Mom, Mackenzie, where are you? Your room is empty. Dad, call home immediately. Amber, OMG, so dramatic. Mom and Dad are freaking out." Then the calls started. First Dad, then Mom, then Dad again. I let them go to voicemail, listening to their progressively more concerned and angry messages. "Mackenzie, this is childish and irresponsible. Call us now. Dad, honey, we're worried. Whatever's upset you, we can talk about it. Mom, your mother is in tears. Is this really how you want to handle disagreements? Dad again. They hadn't mentioned the letter yet, which meant they likely hadn't returned home from Amber's showcase. The cancellation emails had simply alerted them that something was wrong. Around 9 p.m., the tone of the messages shifted. We found your letter. This is extreme and unnecessary. Call us so we can discuss this like adults. Dad. Sweetheart, I understand you're upset about the computer, but this reaction is concerning. Please call. Mom. The Netflix isn't working and I need to finish my show. This is so selfish. Amber. I silenced my phone and opened my window, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of my new neighborhood, distant traffic, someone playing guitar a few apartments away, the hum of the city. Different from the manicured quiet of my parents' suburban street. That first night alone was surreal. I made a simple dinner in my tiny kitchen and ate at my wobbly second-hand table. The silence was both liberating and lonely. No one interrupted me, but no one asked about my day either. I stayed up late researching components for a new PC build. Better than the one that had been sold, and fell asleep with plans and possibilities spinning through my mind. Morning brought a fresh barrage of messages. My parents had clearly read the financial documentation I'd left them. These numbers are manipulated to make us look bad. We've given you free housing for years. Dad. I can't believe you've been tracking expenses like this. Family doesn't keep score. Mom. By afternoon, they had escalated to showing up at my workplace, not realizing I worked remotely and wasn't in the office. My team lead emailed. Mackenzie, your parents came by looking for you. Seemed upset. Everything okay? I responded truthfully, family situation. I've moved out and they're not respecting boundaries. I'm fine and working from my new place. Sorry for any disruption. By Monday, they had somehow obtained Rachel's number and started calling her. She texted me. Your dad just called asking where you live. I told him I respect your privacy. They sound desperate. The pattern continued through that first week, escalating attempts to contact me, alternating between guilt trips, demands, and occasional moments of what sounded like genuine concern. I maintained my silence, focusing instead on establishing my new routine. I ordered furniture deliveries, located the nearest grocery store, set up my modest home office, and explored my new neighborhood. The family phone plan cancellation hit them particularly hard, forcing them each to obtain individual plans quickly. Dad's angry voicemail about the irresponsible cancellation came from an unfamiliar number, his new phone. The power dynamic was shifting, and they were feeling it. By the end of that first week, I felt both vindicated and exhausted. Standing up for yourself is draining, even when necessary. But each day in my peaceful apartment confirmed I had made the right choice. Freedom has its own distinct sound. It's the absence of walking on eggshells. 2 weeks into my new independent life, the initial shockwaves of my departure began morphing into longer-term consequences for my family. While I was thriving in my peaceful environment, focusing on work projects, exploring my new neighborhood, and slowly rebuilding my savings, chaos was apparently unfolding in the suburban house I'd left behind. The first indication came from our neighbors, the Johnsons, who had always been friendly with me. Sandra Johnson sent me a Facebook message. Mackenzie, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Just wanted to check if everything's okay. Your dad was trying to print some forms yesterday and came over asking if we knew how to fix printer connectivity issues. Said you usually handle that stuff. I smiled at the message. Dad's printer issues were legendary, and I'd been his personal IT department for years. The printer password was taped to the bottom of the router, information I'd shared dozens of times, but he never remembered. Sandra wasn't the only one reaching out. My parents' longtime friends, coworkers, and even our extended family began sending curious messages. The story of my abrupt departure had clearly made the rounds, likely with my parents' spin that painted me as impulsive and ungrateful. Your mother mentioned you moved out suddenly. She seems really upset. Is everything okay? My Aunt Diane. Hey, Your dad said you're going through something. Let me know if you want to grab coffee. Dad's colleague who I'd met at company picnics. I responded politely but vaguely to these messages, neither confirming nor denying any specific version of events. Yes, I've moved to my own place. It was time for independence. Thanks for checking in. Meanwhile, the technical issues at my parents' house multiplied. The smart home system I'd installed and maintained began glitching. The wireless printer refused to connect. The family desktop, which I had regularly cleaned and updated, started running slowly. Dad's frustrated texts became increasingly technical and specific. The router keeps blinking orange. What does that mean? Your mother's email won't load on her iPad. What's her password again? The TV says no signal when we try to use the streaming stick. Each message reinforced what I had documented. My contributions to the household had been substantial and largely invisible, until now. I maintained strategic silence, neither blocking their numbers nor responding to the technical pleas. Each ignored message was a small lesson in consequences. Financial issues soon followed the technical ones. My parents had grown accustomed to my $800 monthly rent contribution, plus the numerous subscriptions and services I covered. My mother's text 3 weeks after my departure revealed the strain. Mackenzie, the internet bill came today. It's $240, more than double what we expected. They're saying the premium package you upgraded us to doesn't have any discount without the annual commitment. Can you please call them and sort this out? I didn't respond, but I did smile at the irony. For years, they had dismissed my financial contributions as minimal while simultaneously relying on them. Amber's academic situation deteriorated rapidly without my regular assistance. She had depended on me to proofread her papers, help with basic assignments, and troubleshoot technical issues with submissions. By the 4th week, her increasingly desperate messages showed the impact. Mac, I can't figure out how to format this citation page, and it's due tomorrow. My professor says my paper was plagiarized, but I swear I used that paraphrasing tool you showed me. I'm literally failing this class if I don't get help with this project. Mom and Dad are useless with this stuff. It was that last message that crystallized something I hadn't fully articulated before. I had been enabling not just my parents' favoritism, but also Amber's dependence. By always being the responsible one, the helper, the problem solver, I had contributed to the dysfunctional system. While my family grappled with these new realities, I was discovering unexpected benefits of independence. Without the constant interruptions and emotional drain of my family dynamics, my work performance improved dramatically. My team lead noticed. Whatever changes you've made recently, they're working. Your productivity is up, and the quality of your code is even better than before. Keep it up. I also found myself developing actual friendships for the first time in years. Being the permanent caretaker in my family had left little energy for social connections. Now, I accepted invitations from coworkers for virtual game nights and joined a local tech meetup group. My neighbor James, a graphic designer who worked from home, became a regular part of my new life. We started with polite elevator conversations that evolved into coffee breaks on the building's rooftop garden. He never pried about my family situation, but offered perspective from his own experience with boundary setting. Healthy relationships aren't built on obligation, he told me one evening as we watched the sunset over the city. They're built on mutual respect. My social media reflected this growing independence. While I didn't post anything directly about the family situation, my content shifted from occasional forced family photos to images of my new apartment coming together, local coffee shops I discovered, and projects I was working on. Each post generated concerned comments from family friends, but enthusiastic responses from my growing circle of actual friends. The most significant change was internal. Without the constant background noise of family drama, I could hear my own thoughts clearly. What did I actually enjoy? What goals were truly mine versus what my parents had expected? Who was Mackenzie outside the role of responsible daughter and technical support provider? I started a side project, a web application to help independent developers track their progress and maintain motivation. It was something I'd conceptualized years ago, but never had the mental space to pursue. Now, coding late into the night in my quiet apartment, I made rapid progress. 3 months into my independence, the situation at my former home reached a breaking point. My Aunt Diane, always the family mediator, called me directly. "Mackenzie, I've stayed out of this because you're an adult, but I'm concerned. Your mother sounds desperate. Apparently their internet has been out for days, and your father can't figure out how to restore the backup systems you set up. Amber is failing 2 classes and blaming everyone but herself. They're floundering." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't want them to suffer. I just needed them to understand my value. But they dismissed my contributions for years. They literally sold my property without consent. They need to figure things out themselves now. "I understand," Diane said, surprising me. "Your parents made a serious mistake. But maybe there's a middle ground between being their unpaid IT department and complete silence." Her words stayed with me that night as I worked on my side project. Was there a middle ground? Or would any concession simply reset the pattern of being taken for granted? The answer came unexpectedly the next day when Amber showed up at my apartment building. "How did you find my address?" I asked, meeting her in the lobby rather than inviting her up. "Rachel's roommate works with my friend Jessica's cousin," she said dismissively, as if the violation of privacy was irrelevant. "Look, you need to come home. Everything's a disaster." "This is my home now," I said calmly. "And those disasters aren't my responsibility." "But they are," she insisted, her voice rising. "You always fixed everything. Mom and Dad don't know how to do all the tech stuff, and I need help with school, and the Netflix still isn't working right with the new account Dad set up." I studied my sister, designer clothes, perfect hair, complete confidence that her problems warranted immediate resolution by others. In her 19 years, she had never faced the natural consequences of her actions or inactions. "Amber," I said gently, "those aren't actually my problems anymore. And they never should have been solely my responsibility." "So you're just abandoning your family because of a stupid computer?" Her voice caught between anger and genuine confusion. "It wasn't about the computer. It was about respect. You 3 made a unilateral decision to sell something valuable that belonged to me, something you knew I had worked years to afford. That showed me exactly where I stood in our family. We're sorry about the computer, okay? Dad says he'll help you buy a new one." "It's not about the replacement. It's about the violation. None of you even considered how it would affect me. You just expected me to accept it because Amber wanted nice things." For perhaps the first time in her life, my sister seemed at a loss for words. The entitled anger in her expression gave way to something unfamiliar, the dawning recognition that actions have consequences beyond her immediate desires. "I don't know how to fix my own problems," she admitted quietly after a long pause. "I know," I said. "And that's not entirely your fault. We all played a role in this situation, me included. I enabled it by always being the safety net." She looked up, suddenly hopeful. "So you'll come back?" "No. But I'm willing to start rebuilding our relationship on new terms. Terms that include mutual respect and boundaries." As Amber left, visibly processing our conversation, I realized we had reached a turning point. The consequences of my departure had finally penetrated the family bubble. Now came the hardest part, maintaining boundaries while allowing for the possibility of a healthier relationship. That evening, I sent my first proactive message to my parents since leaving. "I understand things are difficult right now. I'm not coming back, but I'm open to a conversation about moving forward, if you're ready to acknowledge what happened and discuss real changes. Your choice." The response would determine whether my family could adapt to a new reality or remain trapped in old patterns. 3 months into my independent life, everything had changed, including me. My apartment no longer felt temporary, but like a genuine home. I'd added personal touches, framed prints of my favorite game concept art, a small but thriving collection of houseplants, and a dedicated workspace that reflected my priorities. The wobble in my second-hand dining table had been fixed, and I'd installed proper blackout curtains in the bedroom. Professionally, I was flourishing. The focus and peace my new environment provided translated directly into career growth. I had completed several high-priority projects ahead of schedule, earning recognition from senior management. My team lead called me into a virtual meeting one Tuesday morning. "Mackenzie, I'll get right to the point. Your performance these past months has been exceptional. We're promoting you to senior developer with a salary increase of $15,000 annually, effective next month." The promotion came with more responsibility, but also more creative control, exactly what I wanted. With the salary increase, rebuilding my savings accelerated. My first major purchase was a new PC build, even more powerful than the one that had been sold. When the components arrived, I spent a full weekend assembling it, each piece a testament to my reclaimed independence. My side project, the application for independent developers, was gaining traction in the local tech community. I had presented it at a meetup, receiving valuable feedback and offers of collaboration. What had begun as a personal project was evolving into a potential business. Socially, I had developed a small but meaningful circle. Regular coffee with James had become a highlight of my week. Rachel visited often, marveling at the positive changes she observed. "You seem taller somehow," she remarked during one visit. "Like you're not carrying the weight of their expectations anymore." Meanwhile, the situation at my parents' house continued to deteriorate. Through mutual connections and occasional direct communications, I learned that my departure had exposed fundamental weaknesses in their family system. My father's messages evolved from angry demands to frustrated pleas. "The home network keeps crashing. Can you at least tell me how to reset it properly? Your mother can't access her cloud storage with important work documents. She's at risk of missing deadlines." My mother, always more concerned with appearances, focused on emotional appeals. "People are asking where you are at church. It's embarrassing not knowing what to tell them. Your sister misses you. We all do." This silence is tearing the family apart. Amber's academic situation reached crisis level. Without my help navigating assignments and technology, she failed 2 classes and was placed on academic probation. Her dance aspirations also faced reality checks. What had been presented as promising feedback from instructors was revealed as merely polite encouragement of a hobby-level talent. Their financial struggles became increasingly apparent. My father mentioned unexpected budget tightness, and my mother referenced having to cut back on certain luxuries. The premium services I had covered, high-speed internet, streaming subscriptions, cloud storage, were now visible line items in their budget, along with the absence of my monthly rent contribution. 3.5 months after my departure, my father's message marked a subtle shift. I had to hire a tech consultant to fix our home network issues. $200 for 2 hours of work. "I never realized how much you handled for us." It was the first acknowledgement, however indirect, of my value to the household. Not an apology, but a recognition. The true turning point came unexpectedly. One evening while working late on my side project, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello, is this Mackenzie Miller? This is Principal Davis from Portland Community College." Concerned, I confirmed my identity. "I'm calling because you're listed as Amber Miller's emergency contact. There's been an incident." My heart raced as he explained. Amber had experienced what appeared to be a panic attack during a presentation, becoming hyperventilative and unable to continue. She was in the campus health center, stable but distressed. "She's asking for you specifically," the principal explained. "Your parents are on their way, but she's quite insistent about seeing you." 20 minutes later, I walked into the health center to find Amber sitting on an exam table, looking smaller and younger than her 19 years. When she saw me, her expression crumbled. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I came. I replied, surprised by the surge of protective instinct I felt despite everything. I couldn't do it, she said, tears forming. The presentation. I always had you check my slides and practice with me. Without that, I just froze and then couldn't breathe. We talked quietly for several minutes before my parents arrived. Amber explained that the pressure had been building for weeks, failing grades, dance criticism she'd never experienced before, household tensions. Everything was always so easy before, she admitted. I never realized how much work went into making it seem easy. When my parents rushed in, the atmosphere instantly charged with tension. They stopped short seeing me there, clearly unprepared for this forced reunion. Mackenzie, my mother managed, her voice tight. Thank you for coming. My father said nothing, his expression unreadable. The college counselor suggested we all speak privately, guiding us to a small conference room. What followed was the most honest conversation our family had ever had. The health scare had cracked something open, especially for Amber. Everything fell apart when you left, she said plainly. Not just the tech stuff and the house stuff. Everything. And no one would admit it was because we treated you badly. My father started to object, but my mother placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. Let her speak, Robert, she said quietly. Amber continued, I never had to solve problems before. You or mom or dad always fixed everything. Then suddenly you were gone, and mom and dad couldn't fix things either. And I realized, I don't know how to do anything hard. That's not true, my father interjected, his voice gruff with emotion. It is true, Amber insisted. My whole life has been dance recitals and shopping trips and everyone telling me how special I am. Meanwhile, Mackenzie built computers and learned coding and paid bills and fixed everything, and we all just expected it. The silence following her words was heavy with recognition. The computer was mine, I said finally, addressing my parents directly. I saved for 3 years. You knew what it meant to me, and you sold it anyway. Not for an emergency, not for something essential, for shoes and concert tickets. My father's face flushed. We made a mistake, he admitted, the words clearly difficult for him. We've been making mistakes for a long time, it seems. My mother's carefully maintained composure cracked. The house doesn't function without you, Mackenzie. Not just the technical things, everything. We never appreciated what you contributed. You shouldn't have had to contribute like that, I pointed out. I was your daughter, not your IT department or your bank. No, my father agreed, surprising me. You shouldn't have. We took advantage of your responsibility and competence. It was easier than acknowledging that we were failing Amber in different ways. This admission, so contrary to my father's usual defensive stance, stunned me into silence. Will you come home? My mother asked hopefully. We can make changes. No, I said firmly. I have my own home now. And I'm doing well there. Very well, actually. Their disappointment was visible, but they didn't argue. Progress. But I continued carefully. I'm willing to start rebuilding our relationship. Slowly, with boundaries. As we left the health center, arrangements made for Amber's care and follow-up counseling, something had fundamentally shifted. The family dynamic, frozen for so long in its dysfunctional patterns, had begun to thaw under the heat of unavoidable truth. That night in my apartment, I reflected on the unexpected breakthrough. Years of accumulated resentment couldn't disappear in one conversation, but for the first time, I saw my family clearly not as the antagonists in my story, but as flawed people caught in patterns they barely recognized. The realization was both liberating and sobering. Rebuilding would require work from all sides. But for the first time, I believed it might be possible to create a relationship with my family that didn't require my sacrifice. 6 months after my abrupt departure, I sat at a corner table in a neutral ground coffee shop, waiting for my family to arrive. We had progressed from crisis-driven communication to cautious text exchanges, and finally to this, our first planned family meeting on my terms. I watched through the window as they approached, my father's confident stride now more measured, my mother's perfect appearance slightly less polished, and Amber. Amber looked different in a way I couldn't immediately identify. They entered together, but not in their usual formation, with Amber at the center. Something had fundamentally shifted. "You look well," my mother said, sitting across from me. It wasn't her usual automatic compliment, but an observation tinged with surprise. "I am well," I confirmed. "The promotion has been good for me. The new project launches next month." "That's excellent," my father said, the pride in his voice genuine rather than obligatory. "I've been following your company in the business section. Impressive growth projections." Small talk gradually gave way to more substantive conversation. We had agreed beforehand to discuss the family situation openly, and my father, always the businessman, got straight to the point. "We've done a lot of thinking since everything happened," he began. "You were right to leave the way you did. We wouldn't have listened otherwise." My mother nodded, adding, "We've been seeing a family therapist. She's helped us understand some patterns we weren't recognizing. Like how we placed responsibilities on you that weren't yours to carry," my father continued. "And how unfair our expectations were. And how we created a damaging dynamic between you and your sister," my mother added, glancing at Amber, who had remained unusually quiet. This direct acknowledgement, without qualifiers or deflections, was unprecedented. The therapy was clearly having an impact. "We've made some changes," my father said. "Practical ones." My mother opened her purse and slid an envelope across the table. "This is the first installment. We're paying you back for the computer, plus the full value of your contributions to the household that we should never have expected." Inside the envelope was a check for $2,000 and a payment schedule for the remainder over 6 months. "We sold some things," my father explained, a hint of irony in his voice, "including your mother's designer handbag collection and my golf club membership." "It was the right thing to do," my mother said simply. Then Amber spoke up. "I'm working now," she said, that indefinable difference, suddenly clear responsibility, had entered her expression. "Part-time at the campus bookstore. My first paycheck went toward this repayment." "You didn't have to do that," I said, genuinely surprised. "Yes, I did," she insisted. "I was part of the problem. I never considered anyone's needs but my own." She pulled out her phone and showed me her screen, a budgeting app with carefully tracked expenses. "I'm learning to manage money. It's harder than I thought." "She's also retaking the classes she failed," my mother added with a different kind of pride than the one she'd always displayed about Amber's dancing, pride in growth rather than achievement. "And I've cut back on dance," Amber continued. "The instructor suggested I might be better suited to teaching beginners than pursuing it professionally." That was hard to hear, but she was right. This admission, Amber accepting limits to her talents, was perhaps the most shocking development of all. "We've made mistakes for a long time," my father said, returning to the central issue. "We didn't realize how destructive our favoritism was to both of you in different ways. We don't expect you to forgive everything immediately," my mother added. "But we're committed to building a healthier relationship if you're willing." I studied their faces, the sincerity in their expressions, the humility that had replaced entitlement. The changes seemed genuine. "I'm not moving back," I stated clearly, establishing my boundary from the outset. "We understand," my father nodded. "Your independence isn't negotiable. We respect that." But I continued, "I am willing to rebuild our relationship. Gradually. With mutual respect." We discussed practical aspects of moving forward, regular family dinners, but with responsibilities shared equally, boundaries around my technical expertise. I would teach them basics, but not be on-call support, and most importantly, acknowledgement of each person's individual rights and property. 3 weeks later, they visited my apartment for the first time. I watched their reactions as they entered my space, surprise at the tasteful decor, recognition of my style that they had never fully appreciated before. "You've created a lovely home," My mother said the term home rather than place significant. My father noticed my new PC setup and asked appropriate questions without judgment. Amber explored with genuine curiosity rather than comparing it to her own possessions. We cooked dinner together in my small kitchen, an activity we had never done as a family before. The conversation flowed more naturally than it had in years, each of us contributing rather than my parents dominating and Amber performing. As we ate, my father raised his glass in a toast to new beginnings and hard-earned wisdom. In that moment, I felt the truth of what we had all learned through this painful experience. True family isn't built on obligation or roles or even blood, but on mutual respect and genuine care for each other's well-being. The months that followed brought continued growth and occasional setbacks. Old patterns would emerge during stressful times, requiring gentle but firm reminders. My parents sometimes slipped into treating Amber as the center of the universe, and I would need to point it out. Amber occasionally expected immediate assistance with challenges, but was learning to try solving problems herself first. The most profound change was in our communication. Issues that would have festered silently before were now discussed openly. Boundaries that would have been trampled were now acknowledged and respected. My relationship with Amber transformed most dramatically. As she developed independence and self-awareness, the artificial competition between us dissolved. We began to appreciate each other's different strengths. She even asked me to help her create a simple website for the children's dance classes she had begun teaching, a collaborative project rather than a one-sided demand. A year after my departure, we celebrated my 28th birthday at my apartment. As I looked around at my family, imperfect but evolving, I realized that the painful rupture had ultimately created space for healing that could never have happened otherwise. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to refuse to participate in damaging patterns, even when that refusal causes temporary pain. My side project had developed into a successful application used by developers across the country. My career continued to advance. My social circle expanded. All these external successes mattered, but the internal growth was more significant. The knowledge that I could stand firmly in my worth and insist on respect, even from those closest to me. The PC incident, which had seemed so catastrophic at the time, had become something we could now reference with rueful understanding rather than pain. "Remember when we thought a computer was just a computer?" my mother remarked once, showing how far her perspective had evolved. As my family prepared to leave that evening, my father handed me a small box. "This doesn't erase what happened," he said carefully, "but we wanted you to have it." Inside was an engraved external hard drive. The inscription read, "Memories belong to those who make them. Yours to keep always." It was a symbolic gesture acknowledging my ownership of not just possessions, but my experiences, choices, and boundaries, a recognition that had been long overdue. Standing in my doorway watching them leave, I felt a sense of peace that had once seemed impossible. The family we were rebuilding wasn't perfect, but it was becoming something authentic and respectful. The journey had been painful but necessary. Sometimes, walking away is the only way to create the possibility of something better. So, what about you? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself? Drop a comment below sharing your experience. Your story might help someone else currently facing a similar decision. And if this journey resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming your worth. Share this with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away to create space for genuine healing. Thank you for being here with me today, and remember, your boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. Until next time.